Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host, Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, and Patreon, and contact Dayspring Discussions on the Facebook group, Twitter account, and dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Hope you are all enjoying your week. The weekend is almost upon us. Hope you got some good plans. Myself, I'm probably going to work this weekend, just how it goes. I'm feeling a little tired today. Last night, I went out and played some softball, which I haven't done in many, many years. So I was using muscles that probably haven't been used in a while. So a little sore, a little tired, but it's all right. I had to get up. I had to do this before I go to work because obviously there's something we need to talk about. The internet was set ablaze on Tuesday night, so a report came out from Deadline that Sony and Disney will no longer continue their Spider-Man relationship that they have, that, Sony Pictures has been producing Spider-Man content for a while, and within the last couple of years, they've had help from Disney/Marvel Studios with the fact of Kevin Feige helping produce. So a report came out that they were going to renegotiate the deal because after Far From Home, the deal was done, so they have to re-up the deal. Now, the current deal is that Disney/Marvel gets 5% of the gross of the films, but they get to keep all the merchandising gross from all the toys and lunch boxes and all that stuff too. So the deal came out that Marvel wanted more. And in the deal, they said they wanted to keep all the merchandising gross, but also they wanted 50% of the box office gross, and they wanted controlling interest in the actual characters. So they would have a say in Venom 2, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, the Spider-Man films that are possibly coming out within the next couple years through Sony. Now, I went out and tried to find exactly how much, the merchandising profits were for Spider-Man toys and merchandising, but I couldn't exactly find anything. But you got to think it's pretty hefty. I would say, at least a couple million at the least, if not more, maybe a couple $100 million as far as merchandising that Disney is getting. Now they're asking for more of the gross. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home both reached over $1 billion. So, if they wanted more money, obviously that's a good chunk of change going from 5% to 50%, which, some people think that they deserve. That the fact that they, helped bring back Spider-Man from the dumps that was Amazing Spider-Man 2 and so on, that they deserve it. Honestly, I don't know. But let me go back before I get too into this and kind of give you the history just so we know how it's all started. So back in the late 90s, Marvel Comics was in trouble. They were filing for bankruptcy. They needed some cash flow. So they took the film rights for the characters and sold them off to various studios. Sony Pictures got Spider-Man, Fox got X-Men, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Punisher, a few others like that. You also had Universal picked up Hulk, and I believe it was Submariner. So they, had to sell a couple of those to get some money to stay afloat. And then in 2000, Fox came out with their first picture of X-Men. And from there, I think we know all the story. The superhero boom went up, and it's gone on ever since. In which case, Marvel, because of the money they made from those other films, they were able to start their own studio and then take the characters they still own the film rights to, such as Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and start their own thing, becoming more successful, some say, than what Fox and Sony did. So, of course, then they want their characters back, and as of late, they got X-Men and Fantastic Four back. Before that, though, with Daredevil and Punisher, there were several films with Punisher. There was the Daredevil film. What happens is the studios, if they didn't put into production a film that would, star these characters, the rights would revert back to Marvel. So that's what happened with, say, Daredevil and Punisher, and how you were able to get those Netflix series, because Fox didn't start doing production on those, properties for a while. So the rights reverted back to Marvel, who then, put them out in a Marvel series on Netflix. With Fantastic Four and X-Men, they always had something going, really, as far as production-wise. So that's why they were able to keep the rights. And until, of course, Disney bought Fox, now everything's reverted back to Marvel Studios. And that's kind of what's going on with Spider-Man, is they've continually produced Spider-Man material for, over a decade or more. So that's why they're able to, keep the rights for Spider-Man. Now, of course, years ago, we had the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, and Amazing Spider-Man 2 financially did okay, actually. All the Spider-Man movies have done financially okay, but team morale and the perception of Spider-Man kind of went down in the dumps there with Amazing Spider-Man 2, just because of how bad that film was. It really was quite atrocious and probably my least favorite Spider-Man movie. Then, of course, Sony itself got into a little bit of trouble with an email hack. Emails were sent out talking about, insider information within the company, and things were going a little bit awry. So, I don't know if it was Disney or Sony that, reached out to kind of share Spider-Man a little bit, to bring Spider-Man into the MCU, but it would still be produced by Sony. There's still Sony Pictures. They would just help produce them and, put them in the MCU. And it's been a big success. I think, no one can argue that it's been a big success. Homecoming and Far From Home, like I said, billion-dollar films. He's been in 2 Avengers films, and of course Captain America Civil War. Technically 3 Avengers films, I guess. But anyway, it's been a big success, especially with Tom Holland as the lead. He does a great job with the character. It's good. Things are going good. But the initial contract is over now. So now they have to renegotiate. And because things are going so good, each party feels like they might not need the other. I mean, Marvel Studios, obviously, Avengers Endgame just became the biggest grossing film of all time. They're doing good. They got hundreds of other characters they can make movies about. Yeah, Spider-Man's, probably one of the top 4, if not top 3, most popular superheroes ever. But, they've proven with their Phase 1 and so on that they don't need their really popular characters like X-Men and Spider-Man and all that. They made characters popular like Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, etc. So they know they can make a good film or good films with just the characters that they have. Sony, on the other side, they believe that with, Spider-Man, they started their own Spider-Man-less verse, and they came up with Venom. Grossed over $800 million, which is a big success for them. Then they got Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, which I believe did okay money-wise, but critically, of course, it won an Academy Award for Best Animated Movie, rightfully so. They feel like they're on the right track without Disney's help. So then it comes time to negotiate deals to see if they want to renew really this Spider-Man sharing of the character. And I gotta say, I think Disney asked for too much. They asked for too much. Given the fact that also we learned that Kevin Feige will no longer be producing the Spider-Man films, actually. With the fact that, with Fox, he's taking over X-Men and Fantastic Four properties. Sony came out with a statement, actually. Let me go and just read this. Sony Pictures on Twitter on August 20th tweeted this. Much of today's news about Spider-Man has mischaracterized recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. We are disappointed but respect Disney's decision not to have him continue as lead producer of our next live-action Spider-Man film. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that the many new responsibilities that Disney has given him, including all their newly added Marvel properties, do not allow time for him to work on IP they do not own. Kevin is terrific, and we are grateful for his help and guidance and appreciate the path he has helped put us on, which will continue. So, as it says, Tony, definitely taking a little bit of that high ground, despite the characterization of them when the story first broke. So I like this statement. It says they're being very professional about all of it. They're very appreciative of what Kevin and people at Marvel Studios has done and helped them with the character. Sounds great. Now, the other piece of information is that star Tom Holland is still contracted for 2 more Spider films, no matter what. Okay, no matter if Disney's help producing them or not, his contract is with Sony. It's not with Disney. So no matter what, he's doing 2 more Spider-Man films. And if you look at it, okay, look at the Spider-Man film. The way Far From Home ended, I guess, is Spider-Man Homecoming had a lot of Iron Man in it, a lot of the MCU in it, and Far From Home, of course, did have Nick Fury and stuff in it. But Spider-Man is kind of out on his own now. I mean, to where, much like the other characters, say, look at Winter Soldier, okay? People complain about, why didn't Iron Man or Hulk come help Captain America? Or, in Thor films, why didn't, Captain America or Doctor Strange come help? Or whatever, Each of them have their own standalone films that, yes, are part of the MCU, but don't have to touch on the entire universe. I mean, you could easily make 2 more Spider-Man films at least that are still set in the MCU without actually being in the MCU. I think it'd be pretty easy, honestly, as long as you have your Spider-Man characters like Peter and MJ and Aunt May and Ned. I mean, those are Spider-Man characters. As long as you have them along with your Spider-Man villains, bring back Vulture, whatever. I think it'd be very easily to keep the character allegedly in the MCU, at least for a film or 2. But Spider-Man has become such a popular character in the entire MCU, that might be the more difficult part, where you expect to see him in, say, the next Avengers film, and he doesn't pop up. What do you do with him now? If this deal doesn't go through, what do you do with him as far as being in the MCU? Sony could totally ignore it. They could just continue on, which is, I think, the smart thing to do if the deal, doesn't come to terms. But also, I think eventually you'd have to deal with it down the road. You're kicking the can down the road to where, short term you can get away with it. Long term, I think you're going to have to deal with it. And really, I think more Disney would have to deal with it more than actually Sony would, because, the next Avengers film or whatever, they're going to have to explain why Spider-Man's not in it, not vice versa, in my opinion. Now, one of the last bits of information that I looked at in this story was something I just saw maybe about 20 minutes ago or so. It was a source from Sony. This is being reported by the Hollywood Reporter, where they said, quote, a Sony source reportedly told THR that Sony Pictures chairman Tom Rothman is thinking, okay, we've learned everything we need to from Kevin's playbook. We did Venom on our own, and we did Spider-Verse. So again, that's part of what I said about them being a little more confident in what they can do. They've kind of, learned from what they did from Disney and feel like they can go out on their own and be successful. And yes, those 2 films had nothing to do with Disney at all. But can they continue it? Because yes, Venom was a financial success. In my eyes, though, the film was complete crap. And I don't think Venom 2 is going to have the success that the first Venom had, mainly because I think a lot of the draw for that first Venom film was if you were going to see Spider-Man. And that's my own personal opinion. I went and saw the film hoping maybe we were going to see Tom Holland in it, at least, an appearance or some connection, and we didn't. So, I sat through a piece of crap, and honestly, the best part of that entire film was the post-credit scene, which was a look at Spider-Verse, which, again, turned out to be a great film, had nothing to do with Disney, so, they're definitely moving on that. I know they got, Spider-Man cartoons, their own universe that are going to expand from that, so they're definitely moving in that direction. To me, here's what I see the scenario as, okay? Sony is like a business, okay? It's like, say a New York or Boston or business or whatever, okay? And the local mafia shows up to be like, hey, you're going to pay us $1,000 a week, and we're going to protect you, okay? We're going to help you out, all right? We're going to help your business $1,000 a week. And the business owner who makes, say, $5,000 a week is like, okay, that's fine. I'm struggling a little bit. I could use a little help. That's fine. Well, then, the business starts to boom, does a little better, things are going good. And then he comes back and says, hey, instead of $1,000 a week, I want you to pay me $5,000 a week. And the business owner's like, well, that's cutting into a lot of my profits. I don't think I want to do that. And they're like, okay, fine. Then you don't get our protection anymore. They risk that, being hurt, I guess you would say. But it's kind of what I'm thinking of it as my mind. Disney is obviously the big boy on the block, okay? They just gobbled up 20th Century Fox. They've got major studios that produce major films such as Marvel and Lucasfilm. They are it when it comes to, Hollywood power right now. And I think they're flexing a little bit too much of their power. They're going to be like, hey, we make successful films. Your films are a success because we helped you make them. So we want more money. Otherwise, you might not be successful, is basically what it comes down to. And honestly, that sounds like a bully to me, which sucks because it's Disney, it's Disney. It's kiddie films, really, but they're playing hardball. And while I agree, I am happy that Disney and Marvel Studios stepped in to help usher in this new Spider-Man in this glorious era of the success the character is having. Any studio executive who accepts the deal that Disney laid out for him is an idiot. I'm sorry, you can't do that. To run a successful business, to have your most popular franchise, your biggest moneymaker, and say you're going to split 50-50 with someone else, cuts a major dip into your profits. So you can't accept that. Not given the fact that, the studio itself has had successful Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. Again, all Spider-Man movies have made money, okay, for the studio. Critically wise, they might not have done that great, but they've all made money, and they've done it without Disney's help. So they feel like, especially now that they've learned from their mistakes, they can move on from here and be okay. And those are, just one of several question marks that come up is, can Sony still keep the flair of Spider-Man alive? Can they do it without Disney's help? What will happen to Spider-Man now that he's in the MCU, but now unless they come to terms, he won't be. There's questions to do it. Where I sit on it is I would love for them to continue a deal. Now, I know that there's rumors going around that Sony offered 70-30 to Disney, and Disney rejected that too. So I don't know what terms they're going to come to. It depends too, I guess, again, given the fact that Disney helped produce it, how much did they help, I guess? Definitely, I'm going to say more than 5%. So I'd probably say good at 25%, maybe 20%. I don't know. It's just one of those scenarios that if this doesn't happen, we're all losers, I think, because I believe Spider-Man is better when he's part of the MCU. I believe he's better when, he's got the best people working on him. And especially the fact that Kevin Feige, no matter what, I don't think Kevin Feige is going to be a part of it anymore because he's busy dealing with the other properties. So no matter what, it could be one of those things where even if he continues, it might not be that great anymore. I don't believe that, but it's a messed up scenario. I mean, I'm siding more with Sony on this one than I am Disney, to be honest. But I think every one of us is just hoping that something happens to where they can all agree and be happy. But we're talking about, studios, and their number one thing is to make money, okay? It's show business, not show friends. So each studio is trying to do what they have to make the most money for themselves. And in this scenario, it conflicts with each other's business. So I don't know, guys. We'll just have to wait and see how this one develops and kind of go on from there. But of course, fire back, Facebook group, Twitter, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. I've talked enough about this. I want to hear what you have to say now. Let's move on to the second and last subject of today. So, Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow Pictures confirmed that they are working on a fourth Matrix film. The film is going to be written by Lana Wachowski, one of the original directors and writers of the Matrix trilogy. The other sibling not involved, actually. We're not sure what's going on there, but in any event, also they have Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Ann Moss coming back to star as Neo and Trinity. Now, this is all according to Variety, but Lana Wachowski spoke with them saying, quote, "Many of the ideas Lily and I explored 20 years ago about our reality are even more relevant now. I'm very happy to have these characters back in my life and grateful for another chance to work with my brilliant friends." This year, of course, marked the 20th anniversary of The Matrix. And, of course, you had the other films, Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions. A lot of people not happy how the trilogy ended with Matrix Revolutions, but that first Matrix film, no matter what, was very visionary, ahead of its time, did a lot of stuff as far as storytelling and special effects. So no matter what, that film itself is still up on the pedestal. Totally agree with that. So, Matrix 4 coming out. Well, obviously, let's talk about a story perspective. Neo and Trinity both died in the last film, so bringing their characters back, especially when it's been 20 years, not sure how that's going to work. But, you could easily, I think, do some kind of rewriting with, the fact that they could still reappear in the Matrix. I mean, Neo was pretty much absorbed back into the Matrix from what I understand. So I think it'd be, somewhat from a story perspective, easy to bring him back. Trinity died in the real world, so I'm not sure how easy that would be, but you could easily, the Matrix come up with, a digital version of her, go along that way. And like Miss Wachowski said, talking about how, things that they explored and themes they explored are very more relevant today than they were 20 years ago in terms of technology and control and all that stuff. Totally get it. And Warner Brothers, of course, The Matrix was a big deal for them, so they want to try to make money. So bringing this back might be a good idea. It might be a bad idea. I myself enjoy The Matrix. I don't love it. Not as much as, say, as my wife, who, she's a big fan of The Matrix. She's been watching the films ever since this news came out. She watched The Matrix on Tuesday. She watched Reloaded last night. I think she's probably going to watch Revolutions tonight. And she was talking, too, about how the last two films were actually supposed to be one film. And she could see how much better it would have been if it was one film, to cut some of the fight sequences a little shorter, to basically take the story and kind of compress it a little bit. So she agrees that, this last two would have been a lot better if they were one film. And for me, like I said, I always look at it from a story perspective. How do you bring back these two characters that, died in the last film, in the third film, and try to do a fourth film? Well, obviously, if these actors have signed on, there's some story idea that Wachowski has figured it out and has got them to sign on because of it. A lot of people are excited about this because you're bringing back, a franchise that they loved. And honestly, that to me in past events has been more of a worry than something to look forward to. I mean, let's look at past history of franchises that are, 10, 20, 30 years old, and they try to bring it back for a sequel. Okay? Most of the time when they try to bring it back, it isn't that great. The studio is doing it because it's a recognized IP. It was a popular IP years ago, and they figure it'll make money. That's what a lot of studios do now, People are complaining about how you don't see a lot of original films, and studios are just doing sequels and remakes. Well, that's because that's the things that they make money at. So, the fact that they're trying to bring back this IP because they know it'll probably make them money, show biz, not show friends. That's just how it is. I'm not super excited about this, but if they got a good story, hey, I'm on board. Fine by me. And if they don't, well, I can just put this down as another one of those studio ideas where they try to cash in on something that made them money many years ago. And of course, it failed, which means they need to start looking at original properties and investing in original properties, okay, that could actually make the money, make new ideas. New ideas, people. That's what we need. So anyway, that's a little ramble for that. But I know you guys are excited about Matrix 4. I'm semi-excited about it too, more interested than excited. But anyway, fire back, of course, on the social media groups and Gmail account. Let me know what you think about Wachowski bringing back for Matrix 4, not like a reboot. It's not a reboot. It's a sequel, Matrix 4. You got Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Ann Moss coming back. What do you think they can do with it to bring back these dead characters? Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think, like I do, it's just another studio looking to make some money off a popular IP? So, all right, guys, well, that is it for me today. Of course, I only talked about these two subjects, but obviously the Spider-Man news is what's really hot right now. So I went into linked about that, tried to explain myself as best as I could. Obviously, I don't think I did a great job, but I think you get my drift. So that's it. Go out, enjoy your week, of course. This weekend, D23, I know we're getting a Mandalorian sneak peek, allegedly. I know they're going to talk about Mandalorian on the Disney Plus panel. People are saying we're going to get our first official trailer for it. If they do, of course, you know I'm going to be talking about that next week. And who knows what else. Some more Marvel stuff will probably come out. We'll go from there, guys. And, of course, I'll post any news that I can up on the social media groups when it comes out. So stay tuned for that. But that's it. Go out. Have a good day, guys. And until next time, may the Force be with us all.